My name is Dr. Joy Boajapong. I'm the seminar coordinator for CSPS. This afternoon, we have with us this presentation from Dr. Kwadwo Opoku and Dr. George Domfe. Both of them are faculty of CSPS. And they'll be making a presentation on the implications of Ghana's recent tax laws for individuals and businesses. So also to let you know that the meeting is being recorded. We will upload this on our YouTube channel. So kindly take notice of that.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Dr. Japon Riley put it, this afternoon we want to interact with you and share with you what we think are the likely implications of Ghana's recent tax laws for us as citizens and also for businesses. We want to know the 3 revenue tax bills that were recently passed by Parliament. We want to know the implications of the bills on us as individuals and also on the Fed. So we are two, myself, George Domfe, and Dr. Kwadwo Opoku. I will be doing the introduction and talk about Excise Tax Amendment Bill, and I will leave Growth Amendment and Income Tax Amendment Bills for Dr. Kwadwo Opoku to speak on them and also make conclusion to the whole discussions. Sorry, I'm trying to. Okay, so the introduction. Immediately after the bill was passed, one of the questions that we have seen is it necessary at all to increase existing tax rates, looking at the current economic problems, challenges that we are going through, the economic hardships that Ghanaians are going through? Is it necessary at this time to, as it were, approve of or think about any bill at all? And for the benefit of those of us who haven't gone through the bills, we have 3 of them: Excise Duty Amendment Bill 2022, Income Tax Amendment Bill 2022, and Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill 2022. And so, answering this question, whether or not it is necessary at this time when almost everybody is complaining about the economic hardship, to introduce anything or to think of anything revenue bill. And I would answer this question by not saying yes or no, but to say that the bills have been amended for 2 main purposes. One is to improve our fiscal stance. As we all know, the year 2021, I don't have the figures for 2022 because the finance minister is yet to bring them out. I'm sure during the media review, we may hear what happened to the Ghanaian economy in the year 2022. And so I'm not able to speak so much on it. But 2021, government total revenue was 66 billion Ghana cedis. And these 66 billion Ghana cedis, we spent as a nation 35 billion on interest payments and another 34 billion on remuneration. These 2 expenditure line items amounted to 69 billion, far higher than our total revenue. And so what it meant was that we needed to borrow to cover goods and services, and now and then infrastructure, what we call other expenditures for infrastructure, and all the other things that we needed to do as a nation to stay afloat. And so clearly, our fiscal stance is now very poor. Our expenditure is far higher than our revenue, and that in itself means that we need to increase our revenue mobilization effort. Again, as part of the conditions for an IMF to help us with $3 billion US, we are being asked to, as it were, increase our revenue let me say, reduce our fiscal deficit. And to do it is either to cut expenditure and or increase, revenue. The question of cutting expenditure, we all know Ghana government has done what we called domestic debt exchange, and today they are also doing external one just to make sure our interest payments come down. But even as they are doing that, we are also thinking about how to raise or increase revenue, and that is, to me, why these bills are timely. Some have asked whether Ghanaians are not overtaxed, whether we are not paying so much already, and that there is no need. I beg to differ. I hold a different opinion. The figures don't portray that assumption that Ghanaians are paying more taxes than we have to. Indeed, currently as we speak, our tax to revenue, Ghana's tax to GDP ratio is 13.4, and this is the macroeconomic indicator that normally we use to assess the level of payments of taxes. So Ghana, we are not paying so much taxes as many have said. What I think is true is that so many people are not paying taxes. Few who are paying are always being made to pay more. For that one, I may agree to some extent, but that we are paying so much taxes, I do not think there is, figures support that discussions. And so, as I said, our current tax to GDP ratio is 13.4. And if you want to know whether or not you are doing so well, you want to compare yourself to countries across the globe. We all know Denmark, Sweden, and those countries pay taxes more than any other countries. And last year, Denmark was leading with a tax to GDP ratio of 47.4%. What this means is that about half of their total GDP goes to their revenue basket in form of tax. And the country that followed was France, Belgium. All these countries, they did beyond 40%. Indeed, Africa, our average, according to OECD 2020, our average is 16%. And Nigeria is the country that was last, 5.5, and it is so for a reason. They get other sources of revenue, and so they are not. In fact, they are not paying. They don't pay taxes. So Nigeria's case is extreme, and that is the lowest in Africa. Tunisia is doing 34%, and if Ghana, we are doing 13.5, we may be better than Nigeria, but we cannot say that we are overtaxed. Again, we all know that we demand more from government. Today, as I speak with you, all workers are crying because our salaries are not sufficient enough to take us even halfway through the month. But the question is, I'm talking about 2021, when government spent 34 billion Ghana cedis on remuneration, it wasn't enough for us. And the economy couldn't contain that. So what this means is that we need to, as it were, find ways to create more, revenue. Today, we are being told that our fiscal deficit stands at 9.9%. That is the year 2020. Please, this is coming from World Bank. Finance Ministry will definitely come with all these figures during the media review. And once that hasn't come, we can only rely on what the World Bank is saying. Sometimes I have a problem with some of the figures that come from World Bank, because last year around this time, we were told that to GDP ratio was 84. Later, when it came from the ministry, it was around 78%. And so I want to be very careful here to say that this is coming from World Bank, that the year 2022 that just ended, our fiscal deficit stood at 9.9%, and this is very high. The target indeed was 6.7%. What it means is that we are borrowing more. When we say our fiscal deficit, it's just the proportion of, the difference of between our expenditure and revenue as a proportion to our GDP. This has been the biggest problem our economy has been facing. And so 2015 April, when we subscribed to IMF extended credit facility, one of the things they told us was to find ways to cut the expenditure or increase our revenue to always make sure we do very well with fiscal deficit. And so, following on this particular suggestion by the World Bank, the year 2018, Ghana government, through Parliament, came with this act they call Fiscal Responsibility Act. Fiscal Responsibility Act. And this act was to suggest that our fiscal deficit shouldn't be more than 5% of our GDP. Please, a lot of noise. Can we mute our backgrounds? Please. Yeah, and so this law, Fiscal Responsibility Act, the Fiscal Responsibility Act was to control our expenditure, because by this act, we could not at any time incur fiscal deficit of more than 5% of our GDP. And indeed, 2019, we worked within the remits of the law by registering fiscal deficit of 4.7%. Unfortunately, the following year, there was something called COVID. And because at that year, Ghana government previously throughout their budget has said that we're going to spend 85 billion during the year 2020, and we're going to raise 66 billion. And so fiscal deficit would have been around 18 billion, and that would have translated into 4.7% of our GDP. Unfortunately, because of COVID, we spent 104 billion, far over the targeted expenditure, range. And so our fiscal deficit went into doubles. And since then, we have been struggling as a country to go back to where we were in 2019. And that is why it has become necessary to find ways, forgive me to say ways and means to rake in more revenue. And so government proposed 3 tax revenue bills to our parliament. And the 3 bills are supposed to rake in as much as 4 billion Ghana cedis every year once they come in, once we begin to implement them effectively. They are supposed to rake in 4 billion. The 3 bills I've already spoken about them, and one of them is Excise Tax Amendment Bill, and that is what I want to use the next 2 minutes, 3 minutes to talk about them, their implications to production and also consumption. So my good friend, Dr. Kwadwo will take over to also tell us about the adverse consequences of implementation of the other 2 tax revenue bills on our economy. Let me say we are still calling them bill because Parliament, even though has passed, it must go to President for assent in order to be called an act. And that is why I have refused to call it Excise Tax Act. So at this stage, it is no more an act, and therefore we cannot implement it until the President comes to say he's okay with it and that we should go ahead. And the hope is that he's going to do it because it came from them. Now, this particular Excise Tax Amendment Bill seeks to amend existing tax. Please, let us take note of these things. All these bills are not new ones. They are amendment of the existing bills, tax, bills or tax acts, I should say. And so they are not new ones. And so this one, particular one that I'm talking about now, Excise Tax Amendment, is going to replace Excise Duty Act 2014. And by this act, this particular act, I should say, Act 2014, Act number 878, was supposed to help Ghana rake in more revenue. Unfortunately, we didn't get much as the new act is seeking to do. In fact, the new act is seeking to rake in additional 400 million Ghana cedis every year. And not only that, it is also going to help Ghana now to as it were, conform to the ECOWAS protocols that seeks to protocols that seek to mitigate harmful effects of cigarettes and other tobacco products. The tax is mostly 20%. In fact, some of them is some of the items the rate is 17.5. Some is is even lower than 10%, but over 90% of the items identified here, the tax rate is 20%, and that's why I'm talking about 20% here. Indeed, those that I have talked about here are all going for 20%. And so we have cigarette, e-smoking devices, sweetened beverages, sprays, and wines. These are the popular ones that I can talk about. And so what are the advantages? The advantages are in two folds. One, to help us rake in additional 400 million Ghana cedis. And so that is going to help us, as it well, to rake in more revenue in order to address our precarious fiscal stance. And so from that perspective, we look at it as very good. Another good element of this tax is that it is seeking to promote health. Cigarette and other e-smoking devices, as we all know, promote. I mean, people who normally smoke are prone to lung cancer and other, diseases, and so it is not so good, I should say, for us to encourage cigarette smoking. So the idea is that once you impose more taxes on the cigarettes that are produced here, anytime we hear about excise tax, it normally taxes that we impose on goods that are produced in one's country. We call it excise tax, please. Now in the media, many that I've heard talk about this will say exercise tax. It is not exercise tax, it is excise tax. And that is taxes on goods that are produced in one's economy. And so, as I said, once that happens, these goods prices are going to go up, and that's going to encourage some people from consumption. And so that in itself could be good. The beverages, we have heard that most of them, the sugar content is beyond normal. And these days, almost everywhere that you go, we have so many types of cola, Fantas, and all the others. And the children going to school are always going with them. When you go to, you are being served with these. And we are told that it's been increasing, vulnerability. It exposes us to diabetes. And I'm told that it is killing so many people. And so if you also increase taxes on some of these manufacturing products, what you are doing is that you want to say that their prices should move up, and when their prices move up beyond affordability of money, what it means is that only few are going to consume it. And when that happens, we may be able to manage the adverse health consequences. Spirits and wines, yes, that one, I'm told that beer, currently the race on beer with alcoholic content not as high as the spirits is so higher compared to the tax rates on spirits. And so government is trying to be fair to the beer producers by increasing tax rate on spirits. And I tell you, this also has its own health advantage. What is it? People take these alcoholic beverages and they develop a number of health problems. I can think of going back to my village where 1984 I completed middle school in the year 1987, I should say 87, and most of my classmates are gone because of hypertension. They are always under the influence of hypertension, and today we can't see them. And not only my village, there, almost everywhere you go, these spirits, Alombo bitters, talk about them, so many of them, and the youth, we love them so much, and so government wants to increase prices or raise tax rates to discourage people from consuming some of these products. But do they have adverse consequences for our production? And I say yes. Because if you look at the manufacturing sector of the industrial sector, subsector of the industrial sector, one particular sector that is doing so well is the beverages subsector. It is doing so well. And so if we hear manufacturing sector has been growing over 6%, one of the sectors that is pushing this particular growth is the beverages. And I can tell you, my brothers and sisters, that this particular sector is also creating jobs. Indeed, almost every big town that you go, there is a very small factory that is producing a particular type of beer, Fanta or Coke. And indeed, it is creating quite a number of employment opportunities and also helping with our GDP. And so if the taxes go up, we haven't done any research, please. We are just using classical macroeconomic assumptions that appears to suggest that anytime taxes go up, they can lead to collapse of businesses. And this is what we see, because if the prices 20% is very huge. And so what it means is that a particular factory that was paying 100 million as tax a year is now going to pay 120. And they are going to spread their cost on their products. When they do so and people don't buy, they may leave businesses. And when they leave businesses, it has implications for job losses. Again, what is more, we shouldn't think that once you increase the tax rates and then the prices of such products go up, people are going to stop their consumption. It doesn't work that way. It is also possible that when the prices of these products go up, people are not going to import, because if they go to China and they will get it cheaper, they'll go to China and bring them here. And so when that happens, we wouldn't have done anything. It was just a matter of killing our businesses and maybe creating jobs for people in other countries as we do. And if this continues, it wouldn't augur well for the strength of our cedi depreciation. Your cedi will be depreciated. We also saw what happened to the cedi last year, and immediately prices of crude, refined oil products went up, and inflation moved all the way from around 15% it was before we could say that it was over 55%. And every Ghanaian was crying. We don't want to do this. We want to encourage local production so we can produce more of what we consume here. And when you do that, your cedi is becoming stronger, apart from the fact that people are also going to pay more excise taxes to also, as it were, give Ghana more, the government more money, so government wouldn't chase these small loans that are always given to us at very exorbitant rates. That has also put us to where we are currently. And so this is what we have to say, that yes, my recommendation, because I'm going to hand over to my colleague to continue, my recommendation here is that government should look at it. Well, I'm talking about the beverages. If they want to, as it were, address the problem of diabetes, why not then liaise with Ghana standard authorities to, as it were, raise the standards for production of beverages. What I mean here is to reduce the sugar content, so these businesses could still go on, because we've always been saying that we want to go beyond aid, and now we have Ghana Beyond Aid agenda that is seeking to encourage local production. But from where I sit, this is not going to encourage local production, and it could lead to job losses. And so government, as a matter of urgency, because now we haven't still signed it into law, we can still make changes. Even when it becomes law, and why not, they can still look at it and see if they could reduce the 20% rate to about 10%, and rather liaise with Ghana Standard Authority to look at the standards. And so this is where I will lead the discussions on the excise duty and hand over quickly to my colleague, Dr. Kwadwo Opoku. Doc.
Dr. Domfe for the first half of the presentation, and good afternoon once again. So I'll continue with Income Tax Amendment Bill. So in many developing countries, and Ghana is one of them, we see there's a lot of income disparities, and it's also persistent. For years, we have seen that. And whenever there is income disparities, there's a call for a highly progressive tax. But we don't get it. And our tax, as explained at the beginning, our tax to GDP is very low. And we are not able to increase it for a long time. And it is because of certain factors. One, the informal sector is large. I mean, both firms and individuals, workers, many of them work in the informal sector. Many of the firms also work in the informal sector. So you can't monitor them, you cannot see their work. So this Income Tax Amendment Bill will try to tax individuals. And the next one, Growth and Sustainability Fiscal Sustainability Bill, will try to tax firms. And they are all firms working in formal sector and individuals working in formal sectors. So this is deepening, not more of widening the tax net. And widening the tax net has been very difficult because, one, politics. Because if you try to increase it, covering many people, the politics, it doesn't favor democracy that you are operating now, does not favor you. I mean, enlarging the people who are supposed to pay tax. So, for example, the last year, 2022, the bill, one of the bills that went to Parliament, it wanted all the drivers, professional drivers, everybody to, when you are going for your license and register your vehicle, to bring in tax clearance certificates. But I couldn't see any reason, but the parliamentarians said no. And the only thing that I could see is that people don't want to touch the large sector of the economy where many people operate in the informal sector. You touch them and you may lose electoral fortune. So one, because of that, the informal sector exists and no one can touch them, especially when the technology and ID card, digitalization and everything, if there's political will to go into the informal side, we can do it and do it very well. They are not able to do it. And the increasing or the persistent income disparity also call for progressive tax system. And here we mean that the rich has to be taxed more heavily than the poor. This also has not been. Why? We know that the rich people, they possess the economic and political power. And they use this to prevent fiscal reforms that will increase their tax burdens. So if you intend to increase the tax rate in such a way that the rich who has the power to pay more, they don't want to. As it is, no one wants to pay more tax. And one American president said that the only thing that is certain in this world, Franklin, is tax and death. If you take death, which is certain, tax is also certain, especially in modern democracies. You cannot avoid it, but no one wants it. It is inevitable, but no one wants it. And so the rich people, once the incidence will be high on them, they try to avoid it. And we can see that in Ghana right now. One of the tax that you talk about, in 2018, the government increased the top marginal tax rate. That is the highest rate that if your income is very high, will be taxed to 35%. I'm told that after it, it was done in July. That is a media review. By November, when they were doing the budget, they have taken it away. People lobbied that the special people from the oil and the banking industry, those who earn higher income, they lobbied for it to be taken away, to be removed. So it was done. So you can see this example of what Tanzi and Z was saying. They use their political clout to avoid paying high taxes. But of course, not many places. In South Africa, it is 45%. in many places above 45%. So it's not like government is doing something that is not known to the world. Then we also see why is it that we always talk about undeveloped property tax system. It is because the people who own property in Trazaco, East Legon, and those places that could fetch government huge sums of money, the rich, they are the people that also hold the political clout. And so if you see that every year the government said we'll develop property tax system, they are not able to do it. It's highly progressive because poor people do not own those houses. Even the middle income group people do not own it. But the government is not able to do it because the rich people possess this and they don't allow the government to do it. And Tanzi talked about this. So we look at the income tax, key issues in that amendment. One of them was to raise the top marginal tax rate. So I showed to you on the second column is the chargeable income per month. In the law, it is per annum. So I've taken it per month, and I showed 2023, the chargeable income for 2023. So you could see it, the tax rate for the first band, if you earn below 365 in 2022 and 2023, 402, you are not paying any tax. If you earn more than in 2023, if your income is more than 50,000, the government then make additional tax rate of 35%. In 2022, it was 30% if your income is more than 50,000 Ghana cedis per month. So all what government has done is that he's saying that all those whose income between let's say 30,000 and 50,000 Ghana cedis, you pay a tax of 30%. But then if your income per month is more than 50,000, you pay 35%. And let's ask ourselves, who are the people that this tax will be at? These are probably the governor of Bank of Ghana, the rich people, the cocoa board, very few the rich places, and maybe the banking sector, the chief executive, and the top high level, few people that earn more than 50,000 per month, and they are the rich people. And so there was a lot of difficulty in passing this bill. Probably also the MPs were not happy with it because they are also getting closer to it. So you see that it is very difficult to get a progressive tax system. And actually the government thought that he was doing a progressive tax system. But really, if you check, so the last two columns, if you can see it, that is what we actually call it progressive tax system. In progressive tax system, the average tax rate, that is the total tax that you pay divided by your total income as a percentage, should be increasing for when your income is increasing. And we see from the last two columns that if you compare 2022 to 2023, we can actually see that the tax rate actually marginally, they have actually decreased. So it means that in percentage terms, people are going to pay lower tax in 2023, despite this amendment. If you look at it in terms of progressivity of the tax, it is not. Government probably did not do this analysis. Otherwise, they could have done it better. They thought that they were doing it, but they were. So the only people that will face it, even for the people that are earning 30,000, between 30,000 and 50,000, their marginal tax rate has decreased from 27.28 to 27.26. So only people that will face a higher marginal tax rate, average tax rate, will be the people that earns more than 50,000 Ghana cedis. And so many people that are earning, so if you look at this, the cumulative income, if your income is below 20,000 Ghana cedis, if you look at the third column from your right, your right, you see that your average tax rate will be 23%. And maybe most of the lecturers that, if you are a lecturer here, your cumulative income will be between that. So it will be between 15% to 23%. That's where you'll be paying. So virtually this amendment does not affect many people, and many people are not aware about this, and they were fighting against these issues. They were not aware of these things. So it is important that we understand who are they it is going to affect. If your income is low, the poor people, in fact, I think the poor people, it should be increased to 1,000 Ghana cedis, so that if your income is below per month, is below 1,000, I don't see the reason why it should be taxed. But of course, in Ghana now, monthly, if you are earning more than, if your income is 500 Ghana cedis, you still pay an average tax of about 1.2%. If it's about 600, you pay about 3%. So, but I will recommend that, I mean, given the difficulties in Ghana, the poor people should be helped by removing this for the lower band taxpayers. And they also introduced what we call minimum tax scheme. And the minimum tax scheme is usually for the corporate world. So if you see a person here, they say 5% of turnover where the person or the company has been declaring losses for the previous 5 years of assessment of total income. So some of the firms, they are supposed to pay a tax on their profit, or the corporate income tax is on profit. But some of them, they are able to use all means to increase their cost, their expenditure, so that they don't declare profit. And if they don't declare profit, if they are declaring losses, it means that they are not paying any tax. And so one of the tax that have been there that we use is minimum tax scheme. But actually, when you read this bill, that section on it, I think the ministry were not able to conceive it very well. So they said that if the previous 5 years you have not declared, you declare losses, then there's the 5th year, the 6th year, you are going to pay the that tax, which 5% on the turnover. And I think that they will still avoid it. It is incorrect application of minimum tax because it is easily avoidable. So a company can declare a losses for the next 4 years. The 5th year, he declared a very small profit rate, and you tax it, maybe you get 10 cedis. So a huge profit, a huge company, they do it. It doesn't matter how big they are, they do it. So you have to be very, very intelligent in dealing with this. So for the proper operationalization of minimum tax scheme, you make it that I will calculate a tax, maybe 5% on total revenue or turnover, and also I'll calculate a tax on profit. So if the person declares zero profit, or he declared a loss, then the tax on revenue will definitely be positive. Then you take the maximum one, you call it minimum, but it is the maximization of you. So you are minimizing it, that's the tax scheme. So you take the one that benefits you as a government. So that is what they should done. They didn't do it properly, so they should amend it. Otherwise, they will continue, the corporate organization will continue to avoid this tax. Then another one that has gained a lot of popularity is the tax on winnings from lottery. So if you stake a lottery and you win, government is saying that I am going to increase the withholding tax, which in the law, but I think it has not been, they were not able to collect the revenue from that one. So withholding tax have been increased from 5% to 10%. It as if it was there, but they were not collecting it. So, but it has been increased from 5% to 10%. I think because now they have seen that many people are doing it digital, by digital. So it is easy for them to tax it, and they have increased it to 10%. And people have problem with this. And I ask myself, if many of us, we are working and we are paying tax, sometimes very high. If you do consultancy or you get project money, you are going to pay like 20% or 25% of it as a tax. And somebody who is getting it by chance, everywhere when you get money by chance, that's why in many places inheritance tax is very high. That's how the tax, the best way to get efficient tax. If you get something by chance, not by much effort, you pay a higher tax. And if people are paying 20%, then you, by chance, you win a lottery, you don't want to pay tax. How? So it has been increased, and I think it's very good. And also, as the Domfe said, when something is negative, has negative externalities, you impose a higher tax to reduce it. So probably this tax may be able to push out the marginal people who doesn't take higher amount and get higher returns. The tax may be able to push them out from the gambling. Then there was also
Dr. Opoku. This is a very interesting presentation, but can you kindly wrap up in the next 2 minutes so that we can have a Q&A?
All right,
as well?
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Right, thank you. And there was also a tax on those who are selling their lottery and those things. So their profit, the gains that they make, they are also going to pay 20% on that tax. It was not there, and they have brought it. And also there were amendment for people who want to withdraw because of the problem, withdraw from Provident Fund or personal pension. Now, this one, it is good for the benefit. Government is not going to tax them for this year because of the COVID. If they want to withdraw from that, government is not going to tax them. Then there were amendments for motor vehicle benefits quantification. That is, if your company, your employer gives you something like a vehicle, fuel, and other things, it is kind of allowance. So there's a need to quantify it. So these were how the government, it was in 2015, the Income Tax Act, but it has not been changed. So the government just amended it and increased the maximum rate. Then there's another one, Growth and Sustainability Levy Bill. So this one also for businesses, and this one, it started from 2001, National Reconstruction Levy, then which imposed some tax on some companies, especially the financial sector. Then it came to National Fiscal Stabilization Levy 2013, which was amended in 2019, but expected to expire in 2024. And in 2023, it has been amended and named it Growth and Sustainability Amendment Bill. And this will run from this year to 2025. And this is how the tax bill categories. So you see those banking sector and electronic money issuers and other shipping lines, they are paying 5%. Then for mining companies, because they can decrease their profit, they are paying 1% on the gross production, not on profit. And all the other business category, it has been expanded to many business categories, which will pay 2.5% on profit tax. So this should basically affect the profit tax, and it depends on how they will push, whether these firms will push it to consumers or not. We have not done empirical research, so we will not be able to do that, to say that for sure right now. So in our conclusion, we are saying that there's no doubt that the government of Ghana needs to raise additional tax revenue for social protection and reducing budget deficit. The tax amendment laws have varied implications on individuals and businesses. However, the distributional and welfare implications will depend on how additional tax revenues will be spent. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Domfe and Dr. Opoku. This, of course, is a very interesting presentation. And we would now open up for questions, comments. We already have some comments in the chat. And I think there's a question from Michael Uswansa, who is asking, why is it the president is yet to assent to the tax bills, considering the circumstances of its passage and the impression created that the laws were urgently needed for the IMF bailout? I think, yes, Aneka is also surprised that people earn as much as 50,000 a month in this country. So now I'm going to ask Isaac and Awini to also ask their questions, and then we would allow you to come in with some responses and then go another round. Kindly permit us to go beyond our time by about 5 to 10 minutes because we didn't start early, and I think this is also a very interesting discussion and quite timely as well. So Isaac Asamoah, what's your question, please? Please unmute. Isaac, are you there? Okay. Let me see. I think we missed them. But the question about why is it that the president is yet to assent to the tax bills, even though the impression created was that it was needed urgently for the IMF bailout. So any of you can come in.
Yes, thank you very much, Madam Moderator. That is just a process. Normally, when Parliament agrees to a bill, when a bill is presented to them, they have to do 3 different readings in order to ascertain, number one, whether or not it's not going to be in conflict with an existing law, and then again to find out whether or not, when it is implemented, the adverse consequences on some Ghanaians wouldn't be so high. So after looking at this, Parliament would have to then go through and pass it. When they do, the final authority lies with the president. The president has a certain number of days. I'm not too sure whether it's 20 or 21 days. If at that time and they have not done it, Parliament then has the power to push it to another level for it to become law without the president's assent. But this one makes it very instructive, and that come one day, president is going to, assent to the bill to make it an act, is the fact that they came from the executive, and mostly it has certain minimum number of days that it must be with the president in order for it to be made public that an assent has been provided to make it an act, to change it from the to the. And so it's not anything deliberate that maybe they haven't done it. I'm sure it's just part of the process of law making. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. I think somebody also asked why we made it like IMF was making this. Actually, it may be an implied because IMF want the government to reduce the deficit. And so one way to do it is either reduce expenditure or increase revenues. And the expenditure is usually bunch of it, which is the workers' remuneration and interest payment are usually statutory and difficult. You see the debt exchange program, very difficult, so it is usually not done. So it might be implied. Secondly, I mean, if you read IMF and World Bank documents, our problem has been domestic revenue mobilization. So I think it's like when sometimes you go to an office and want somebody to do something for you and doesn't want to do, you say, my boss. So my boss says so. So sometimes, otherwise, as I said, this law, for example, the income tax law, it came in 2018, but they were able to lobby for the government to take it away. By now, if you go and you lobby, the government can just say that IMF has said so, so we can't do it now. So probably it's convenient for them to do it right now, something that they should have done it earlier. But they didn't have that political will to do that. But now they will be able to attribute it to somebody. Thank you. I think somebody.
Thank you. We have Zagun and then Awini before Michael. Zagun, please start with your question.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Please, I want to get a clear cut here concerning IMF conditionality. Is it a country that propose what it can do, or is IMF that come with that items of conditionalities? Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, I was thinking we can allow Awini and Michael to come. We can take them together.
Okay.
Awini, please go ahead.
He says he's
Please
unable
unmute.
to unmute his mic.
Oh, okay. Let me see. I don't know why. Okay, then Michael, you can also type your question in the chat. Michael, you can please go.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. I want to come back to the delay in giving assent to the bill. I mean, we have seen some assent given in the same day of the passage, in the night of the passage, or a day after the passage. And this particular bill, we all saw the drama where an MP had to be rushed to the place involved in an accident and still was counted in the vote. I mean, there was so much drama in this passage that one wonders whether it was much ado about nothing or why the delay. And I get a sense from the presentation on the income tax amendment that even a law that has not been, even a bill that has not been passed into a law, we are beginning to notice a number of loopholes and are even calling for amendment before they even become a law. So one wonders what were the considerations that went into the formulation of these bills. Because in the income tax presentation, we saw that virtually the tax brackets remains unchanged. And if there's going to be a change, because in the old law, above 20,000, you were paying 30%. But now the same 30% threshold is going to stay till you get to 50,000 before the threshold changes. How many of us earn that much? And if the target is to raise revenue and the brackets are remaining the same, and certain elements, for instance, you see them placing 20% tax on bottled water. And one would think that some of these taxes are to prevent people from consuming or to serve sometimes as disincentive. But if you are taxing bottled water cannot be said to be a luxury. And so I'm yet to be convinced whether really much thought went into this tax formulation, because industry and businesses are complaining that it's going to affect their businesses. Already a petition has gone to the president. Secondly, I want to ask Dr. Domfe, this 35 billion of salaries, there's a section that believes that it is disproportionate to some few Article 71 holders who are getting more than the larger public servant. Is there a data breakdown to show how this salary amount is disproportionately applying to all the various segments in the public sector? Thank you.
Yeah, my brother, Mr. Usunsa, thanks so much for your very, very good questions, but some of them very difficult. Sitting here to answer, I should tell you. Yeah, so the delay. I know, you are right. Sometimes, I mean, an emergency bill, as soon as it gets to the president, as soon as Parliament passes it, immediately afterwards, the assent follows and it becomes a law. But this one, I'm hoping that the 21 days or so, I'm confused either 21 or 20 days. Once it's not yet 21 days or 20 days old, I do not think it's much of a problem, because this is something that is going to be with us for long until one day we decide to amend them. And so it is not an emergency bill that will demand prompt attention. So I want to see the president working within the days that we always give him to assent to other bills apart from the emergency bills. And so that is my explanation. Yeah, talking about the Article 71 holders that you are talking about, their salaries are not so much different from what some of us are receiving. They are all in the public domain. You can check. I know if you were a minister at I think it's about they are about 34,000. MP receives 28,000, and because I was looking at this and I was told, because government announced that all his appointees should lose 30% of their salaries. When I think about a year or so ago, the MPs, all the ministers who are MPs, are today collecting salaries of MPs. You know, as an MP, you are not paid differently from being a minister. So if you are an MP and a minister, and you are paid 28,000 Ghana cedis, you need to be paid additional 4,000. Unfortunately, some time ago, we did hear some MPs who were ministers also collected salaries for being ministers and also for being MPs, and that's what we normally will refer to them as double salaries. This time, I don't think it is happening, and the checks that I did, and recently, all ministers of the state today who are MPs are now collecting 28,000. This 28,000 includes taxes and pension and all that, and most of them, at the end of the day, their net salary hovers around 18,000. Of course, it is higher than a senior lecturer. As I speak with you, man is not as higher as them. So there are a lot of discrepancies, I should tell you. Government introduced what they called a single span salary, and it was meant to correct these discrepancies, but I don't think it worked to the perfection. And today there are discrepancies. Indeed, other people who work for government agencies, such as Governor for Bank of Ghana, as I know it here, receives about 120,000 Ghana cedis a month. Cocoa Board Chief Executive receives over 80,000. So those who are chief executives of other agencies, their salaries are very high. President receives around 44,000 Ghana cedis, and the former president about 42. All these are in the public domain. And so I don't think the problem is with the Article 71 holders. They are not receiving so much, if nothing at all. It's then about those government agencies. But I can understand they are not being paid from the same basket that we are paid from. Cocoa Board, for example, they raise their own money to pay their workers. And therefore, if they pay, if you are a CEO of Cocoa Board and he's a governor appointee, his salary is far higher than the president. And that is why, to me, they are being asked to pay more. Whoever that receives over 50,000 should pay more. I have a friend who works for a foreign company, and he receives about $10,000 a month. And $10,000 a month today is about 120,000 Ghana cedis. And so all such individuals are going to pay more because they receive far over 50,000. And to me, it is in the right direction. There was a question. Zaun, yeah, IMF. Yes, what is it about? IMF is a hospital. And so patients go to hospital when they are sick. And so once you go there, your economy is sick. And so they wouldn't sit for you to tell them how you want to be treated. Just as when we go to the hospital, the doctor is going to prescribe quinine, very bitter, that if they think that is what can help heal you, that's what they will give you. And so once you go there, you don't have much say, except that these days they are open for discussions. And they have, let me say that they have categories of intervention programs. And so when you go, they sit with you, you tell them of your problem. Of course, they know it already. And they then would advise which of the categories. Today, I'm told we are going for extended credit facility, the same one that we went for in April 2015. And so they would advise you, but they will not give you that space for you to tell them how you want things to be, except that they will still listen to you. So if you have people who are very smart, it doesn't matter how harsh their conditionalities are. If you have very smart people negotiating with them, they are able to get better deals for the country. And I do hope that maybe that is what is going to happen to us. Let's hope we get a better deal. Thank you very much, Madam Moderator.
Thank you very much, Dr. Domfe. Let me give a chance to the last person, or we need to come in if he can, so we can wrap it up. And
hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
IMF.
Hi, Awini.
Sorry, a call came to this.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was asking regarding the World Bank's reporting and that of the Ministry of Finance reporting. We have had issues where there was a complaint about the government treating some debts, for example, like the Sino Hydro debt, below the line. And when it comes to the time they were going to the IMF, they brought it above the line. Those issues, what does Doc has to say about that? And then yes, please. And then the issue about the local production. We've had a complaint concerning one of the 1D1F factories that was producing cylinders in Ghana, which was cheaper. Then they've gone to bring a Chinese company that is also producing, which has now brought that company down. How do we encourage local productions if we are allowing foreigners to come into our country to produce at a cheaper price, which our people cannot do? Thank you.
Thank you,
Okay.
Awini. The last, I see Michael's hand is up, so the last one from Michael, and then you take it. Yeah.
Okay, good
Please make it
afternoon
brief. Yeah,
to
thank
us
you. Good
all.
afternoon.
Dr. Kwadwo Opoku said he's not done an empirical analysis of the new taxes. I want to find out from CSPS, would there be a follow-up forum on this for us to know whether the consumer is going to bear the tax burden of the new taxes or the companies will bear it?
All right, thank you very much. So the one question somebody asked about the treatment of certain items as below the line or above the line. This should be a different lecture altogether because many people get this, even the parliamentarians and even the people that prepare the accounts. I think in this case, I supported what the Minister of Finance did. It was right, but they couldn't defend themselves. I think the IMF and the World Bank, they went into a realm where it was not. The IMF themselves have their manual how we prepare accounts. And we have different level of account. We have accrual, that is, you prepare it, whether you pay or not pay, and we have on cash basis. Unfortunately, the Ghana, from time immemorial, we cannot prepare accrual. Sometimes we attempt it, but we have not been able to do it. Those accounting people, maybe Michael and other people, they understand this. But we are using cash on cash basis. So on cash basis, it says that if government asks contractor to build a road for the government, it finishes, but the government has not paid the contractor, we don't treat it as payment. That is how the IMF manual states. And so all those things that happen that they call it above the line, when the IMF brought it back, it was not cash payment. And so I think they didn't do it well on that regard. And I think the Minister of Finance did the right thing, but they couldn't defend it. And if you are doing something, they were saying it is one-off items. No, even if one-off item and it is cash, you need to include. But unfortunately, it wasn't cash item. It was like buying something on credit. You have not paid for it. And so in account, it is something that in principle I've incurred, but you have not paid cash. So you cannot include that thing in the account. So I think sometimes this is what brings the differences, the IMF, the World Bank, and the Ministry of Finance and the Bank of Ghana. This is what bring these differences. And I think all of us, when we understand this, then we appreciate when the communications are going on. And I think somebody asked the follow-up on this so that we can do a distributional and incident analysis. We are hoping that to be able to get enough data and resources to be able to do this, to inform people about it. In fact, this should every tax in many jurisdictions before the taxes are being signed into law in Parliament. Even the Parliament may have their own congressional economists over there who will be doing all these things. Many countries they do this before even the thing. They will allow you to go to Parliament to vote on it. But unfortunately, we don't do it. And with the academics, once we are able to get the resources and the data that is required, we should be able to do it to inform next tax policies. So thank you very much for this.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Are you okay? I thought you were coming in again. So,
No.
so thank you very much for this presentation and for this exciting comment. I think that we had a very interesting discussion, and this is the last seminar for the semester. So we are happy that you made time to join in. Our next semester, we are going to start again our seminar series, and we hope to have all of you in there. Join us. On that note, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of you once again, and have a wonderful break as well. for those of you who are with us
Thank
here at the university. Thank you.